Brandon Tatum absolutely pulverizes a silly, smug, white leftist. Guys, this is gonna be a good one. I think you're gonna enjoy it. Basically, what happened here is that Brandon essentially called Barack Obama's blackness into question, and the smug white leftist wasn't having it, folks. He got quite triggered. You'll see what I mean in a moment here, and we're gonna get right into the clip. But first, everybody, please make sure you like our video, share it around, and subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel. If you guys subscribe, we can keep these great videos coming, so please go ahead and do it. As always, I'm your host, Darian, and let's get into the video.
Conservative, or at least know that I was. Larry Elder hurt my feelings. He started saying all that truth. I was feeling some type of way. Oh no, he can't be right. Dudes on the police department hurt my feelings because I was all over Barack Obama. That was my dog. Smart. He was black, even though he ain't black.
How do you mean he's not black?
What part? Hold on.
No. How do you mean Barack Obama's not black?
How is he black? Give me an example.
His father's black.
So that makes him black?
Yeah.
What about his mama?
His mother's white.
So that makes him black? Sit down real quick. Let me school you real quick.
Okay, go ahead and school me.
Okay, is white supremacy, are you a white supremacist?
No.
It's white supremacy that says that a black man and a white woman together make a black kid. That is the purest idea of white supremacy. No, it's not.
You said it's not a racist country.
Are you gonna cry? Please sit down.
We are not a racist country.
Please sit down.
The dominant social order says
because white supremacy says that. That's why you hold the truth to that.
That's the dominant social order of the country.
My son.
You said is not
listen.
racist.
Don't talk over me, please.
I'm sorry. It's your event. Go ahead and speak.
That's right. That's right. You're talking over a black man. Come on. With all due respect, okay?
A fair point. It is always these angry, smug, white leftists who are going and screaming at these black conservatives more than anyone else. Do I need to point out the obvious irony here? I don't think I do.
With all due respect, Barack Obama isn't black because he have a drop of black in him. My kids are not black. My wife is white, I'm black. They're biracial. They're not black. See, what happened in history is that if a black man or a white man or any other race had a drop of anything else, and it eliminated them from being pure white. It was called a one-drop rule. If a white person had a baby with a black person, they did not want the white race to not be pure, so you defaulted to the other race. Today, they practice the same thing. What makes my son black? He is 50-50. He's half white, half black. There's no way that you call him black unless you want the white race to be pure. And I think that's what that is. 50-50 genes. That boy is 50-50. He don't have to walk around and say black. He don't have to walk around and say white. He's biracial. And it bothers me when people still hold that racist ideology. If a white person have a baby with a Hispanic person, that person is Hispanic. Why is that? Because the white race needs to be pure. It cannot have any fault. It cannot have any mixing. They used to call it back in the day race mixing. That's why we have racism today in some capacities, is because of that very reason.
Hold tight, guys. We have another clip from that exact same interaction with that same guy coming up. What Brandon says here is really interesting, and it makes me think of the one drop rule. This emerged out of the Democrat South, and what it says is that if a person has a single drop of black blood, then they are a black person. This could mean that somebody could be, say, 5% black, 3%, whatever. They could have their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather be black. Everyone else is white, but they're still considered black for the purposes of Democrat South. Point being, when someone like Barack Obama nowadays is considered black, even though he has a white mother, and let's be real, he didn't have any kind of rough upbringing, even though some people like to portray that. You know, he grew up in Hawaii, went to fancy private schools his whole life. He was a really upper middle class to rich kind of guy. Another thing this reminds me of, Dinesh D'Souza, a conservative commentator who I'm sure many of you here know, famously talks about the Democrats' history of racism and how, you know, they were the Ku Klux Klan, they instituted Jim Crow, all that kind of thing. And what's fascinating is, believe it or not, when the Nazis were planning their Nuremberg laws to determine who was a Jew and who wasn't, there were proposals by Nazis who had studied in the United States to model their rules after the United States Democrat Party. What does this mean? Well, one example was when the Nazis were discussing, how do we define who a Jew is? We need to define that so we can determine how we're going to institute these types of policies against. One Nazi who was studying in the US said, oh, it's very simple. We use the one drop rule. It's what the Democrats in the southern United States do. If a person has a single drop of Jewish blood, we will consider them Jewish. And in a very strangely ironic and disturbing manner, one could say quite ironically, the other Nazis Nazis actually disagreed with them and said, no, 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 that's too racist. We're not as extreme as the Democrats. That's nuts. And ultimately, they decided to say, okay, if someone is 75% Jewish or more, then we'll consider them Jewish. So the Democrats had the one drop rule, and the Nazis had the 75% rule. Pretty strange, isn't it? Now, let's continue watching that fun interaction with Brandon Tatum and the white leftist.
What color? What's your race?
I'm biracial. That's real funny. That's real funny.
What did that mean?
You just said that your son is biracial.
What's your mix?
I'm Hispanic.
And what?
And white.
Okay, so you go by white?
I go by mixed.
So why is Obama black then?
Well, I mean, I'm also Hispanic. I'm white and Hispanic. There's multitudes.
But you're mixed. You're not just Hispanic.
Let's get back to the
Would
issue.
you be the first Hispanic, whatever?
I mean,
If you feel like it?
whatsoever.
So are you Hispanic?
Can we get back to the?
No. Will you qualify for minority benefits?
So you said that the United
Would
States.
you qualify for minority benefits?
So no, because I'm not. No.
Why not?
Okay, so
you're Hispanic.
So you said that the United States is not a racist country. However, the dominant social order imposes that white has to be pure, which you acknowledge comes from the United States. But
You're perpetuating that, not me.
But we're not a racist country, like you said.
Do you believe there's things in this country you can do that I can't do?
Yes.
Name it.
Statistically, if.
No. What you can do that I can't do.
Oh, well, then nothing. However, we kind of are dealing with lots of numbers and people. If we were both owning houses in a similar neighborhood and I tried to sell my house and you tried to sell your house, my house would statistically be valued higher than yours.
Wait, but I thought he's mixed and, part Hispanic and therefore he's not white. I'm a little confused here.
Theory.
Because I have lighter skin than you.
What house do you live in?
Because I have lighter skin than you.
How big is your house?
I don't. I'm sorry?
How big is your house?
I have no comments on that. That's not important. That's a non sequitur.
It's not. Is your house bigger than mine?
If we had similar houses in a similar neighborhood and we both tried to sell our houses, statistically, my house would be valued higher than yours because you have darker skin than me.
According to who?
I'm sorry?
According to who?
The skin color or?
If you were working at a bank and you were giving out loans, would you give out a loan to a white man and not a black man?
That's what redlining is, you donuts.
All right, let me explain redlining.
Bruh, did he just call him donuts? I can't take this guy seriously. I mean, the red man bun, that was bad enough, but you really just called somebody a donut instead of, I suppose, dumbass was the word he was looking for? Major cringe alert.
Let me explain redlining for you guys. I was trying to make a point there, it was kind of comical. However, this is a really good book for you to read as well. Thomas Sowell wrote a book called Discrimination and Disparities, right? Just because there's disparity don't necessarily mean that there's discrimination. I can go down a list. Do you think that school districts are discriminating against men? No, they're not. Women just decide to work in schools more so than men do. Do you think that the NFL is discriminating against white men? No, it isn't. Just so happened that black people, athleticism plays a role in black people playing in sports in the NFL. That does not mean because there's a disparity that there's discrimination. Now, redlining. I did my research on redlining. There is no unequivocal proof that the reason why loans were given or not given is just because people were black. So in theory, this is pretty much what it's supposed to be, that certain areas in our country, banks would not allow or they would not give certain loans to certain areas, right? Because of multitude of reasons. Whether it's a dangerous area, they wouldn't give mortgages to dangerous areas that are run down, all of the above. And just so happened in some of these areas, they were minority areas. Now, people take that and say the banks were racist. But if you look at the bank institutions, if they had higher qualifications or unrealistic qualifications for black people, unlike white people, then you would see that the rate of not being able to pay your loan, right? If the defaulting on your loan and different things like that, you will see it being higher amongst whites and not blacks if they had extra qualifications for blacks. And that's not what happened. Now, I don't know if it was racist or not. I don't believe that it was because I don't believe there's a correlation. Look at the black banks and look at the white banks. Black banks rejected black people at the same rate or higher than white banks did. Where's the correlation? Where's the outcry on that? And so moving forward, the idea from one side says that they only did this because they were black. On another side, they had ramifications for people not taking care of their communities, not having good credit and the like. So you have the two factions that have a difference of opinion. And you go to move forward and you say, how does redlining affect black people today? You know, I grew up in a black neighborhood, and many people who talk about this subject have never lived in a black neighborhood. It's not about redlining that I saw or anything that had anything to do with the government, the reason why black communities were suffering so much. It was culture and personal responsibility. There's no law that makes you not graduate from high school. That's a personal decision. There's no government law that thrusts you into selling drugs in your community. That's a personal decision. Unfortunately, black people, in my opinion, in these inner cities have adopted this culture that's destructive. And this has really no relevance. Now, let me give you an example of how I think that the overcorrection of what they call redlining, and this is what they do every time, caused the crash of the market. Because in, I guess, protests to redlining, they now gave non-discriminate loans to people who did not qualify. And what happened? We had a whole crash of the system. Black people were not defaulting on their loans at a higher rate than we've ever seen in history. And that's because they focus on race, and we should be focusing on results. If you don't have a high credit score, you should not be able to get a particular loan. There's a lot of other things that are factored into this. Larry Elder wrote a really good piece. Tommy Sowell obviously wrote a really good piece. They both are very similar in their thought process here. They don't answer a lot of questions that go along with the behaviors of different people, right? They go, well, they give loans to white people at a better interest rate than they give to black people. What they don't ask the question of is that, are they equal in their financial situation? If you look at statistical data, white people have 30% more savings than black people do. When you go to get a loan, if you know anything about loans, they look at how much liquid funds you have.
Well, Brandon, that 30% that white people have is obviously caused by racism. You know, it can't be that, you know, prioritize saving money or anything like that. It's white supremacy. So I think you need to check your notes there, Brandon. Kidding, obviously. Okay.
Look at what you have in your savings. They look at how much money you make. And then you have to negotiate. Are black people negotiating to get a better interest rate? Or are they just taking the first thing that they get?
All solid points by Brandon there. I really like what he said about redlining too. You know what it reminds me of is when, much like the redlining argument, many leftists will say, well, we have a racist system, systemic racism, white supremacy, they're holding blacks down. And then you ask them, okay, name some ways black people are being held down by whites. And then they'll say, over-incarceration, over-policing, the fact that our prisons are crowded with black people all the time. And then you point out, well, you know, they're also 13% of the population and commit over half the murders. You think that may have something to do with why they're at prison at higher rates. No, racism, it's all racism. Obviously illogical, obviously it doesn't make sense. And you know how you can prove that they're completely disingenuous about it? You simply ask, okay, we have less Asians than whites in prison on a per capita basis, right? And to prove how disingenuous you are, there's a very simple thing you can ask. You just point out, Asians are placed into American prisons at a far lower per capita rate than white people are. Does this mean that there's a system of Asian supremacy, of Asian people holding white people down? And then they'll probably respond with, well, no, they probably just commit less crimes. Oh, you're telling me that some groups of people on average commit less crimes than others? Oh, who could have made that point just about 20 seconds ago? I don't know, guys. You tell me. I haven't gotten to the bottom of this still. Point being, if you're gonna say something is racist, the burden of proof very much lies on you, especially when, as Brandon said, different groups of people, on average, behave differently. Well, guys, that wraps up the video for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, comment below, let us know what you liked, what you want to see next, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks so much, and God bless.